Look at this row of bottles lined up across my workbench. 9 used oil samples, each one labeled with a brand and a mileage interval, each one pulled at exactly the same drain point on engines that have crossed 200,000 miles. 6 of them look like dark amber tea, which is what you want. 3 of them tell a different story. One is nearly opaque black, sitting heavier in the bottle than the rest. Another has a strange copper tint when I tilt it under the shop light, like weak iced tea with a penny dissolved in it. The third one catches the light in a way no clean oil should, with a faint metallic shimmer suspended in the fluid, almost like glitter that refuses to settle. I'm going to walk you through every brand on this bench, what the lab found inside each bottle, and why 3 of them raised flags I genuinely did not expect. If you've spent any time on car forums, you've probably read the same line 100 times. All API-SP oils are basically equivalent. Pick the cheapest one on sale, change it on schedule, and your engine will outlive your interest in it. And honestly, for a lot of vehicles, that argument holds up reasonably well. The American Petroleum Institute SP standard is a real specification, with real testing behind it. And any oil that legitimately carries that donut on the bottle has cleared a meaningful bar for wear protection, deposit control, and low-speed pre-ignition resistance in turbocharged engines. So I want to be clear before we go further. I'm not here to tell you that supermarket oil is poison or that your engine is going to grenade if you don't buy the boutique stuff. What I am here to tell you is that at high mileage, in specific engine families, under specific conditions, the gap between oils widens in ways the marketing on the front of the bottle does not prepare you for. That's why this kind of testing matters more once an engine crosses 6 figures. A fresh engine has tight tolerances, strong ring seal, and cooling jacket cleanliness that masks a lot of oil shortcomings. A 200,000-mile engine doesn't. The clearances have opened up, the rings have lost a little tension. The variable valve timing solenoids have years of varnish exposure, and the oil itself has to work harder to do the same job. That's where the differences between base oil quality and additive chemistry stop being academic and start showing up as wear metals in a lab report. So I wanted to know, with real numbers and not marketing language, which oils were still doing the job at this mileage and which ones were quietly falling behind. Here's how the protocol worked. I partnered with an independent tribology lab that runs ICP wear metal analysis as part of its standard fleet program, the kind of lab that contracts with mining companies and long-haul trucking fleets, not the kind that sells you a kit and a coffee mug. We used a small fleet of high-mileage test mules, all running either the Toyota 2GR FE V6 or the Honda K24 4-cylinder, plus a separate sub-fleet of turbocharged 2.0-liter engines for the fuel dilution arm of the study. Every engine had crossed 200,000 miles before the test began. Every engine got a fresh filter at each interval, and every drain happened at 5,000 miles on the dot, regardless of how the oil looked or smelled. Each sample went to the lab for the full panel, viscosity at 100 degrees Celsius, total base number to track additive reserve, oxidation by infrared, and the wear metal spectrum, iron, copper, lead, aluminum, chromium, the whole readout. Same engines, same drivers, same routes, same fuel, same filter brand. The only variable was the oil in the sump. Before I show you the wear numbers, you have to understand what's actually happening inside that bottle, because this is where the marketing claims and the lab results start to disagree. Motor oil is not one ingredient. It's a base oil, which is the fluid itself, and an additive package, which is the chemistry suspended in that fluid. The American Petroleum Institute classifies base oils into 5 groups. Group 1 and 2 are conventional refined mineral oils. Group 3 is highly hydroprocessed mineral oil that's legally allowed to be called synthetic in North America. Group 4 is true polyalpha olefin, the lab-built molecule that most people picture when they hear the word synthetic. Group 5 is everything else, including esters, which behave a little differently and tend to show up in racing and aviation oils. Most oil on the shelf today, including most products with the word synthetic on the label, is a blend of Group 3 with some Group 4 mixed in, plus the additive package. That additive package is where the real action is. It includes detergents to keep deposits suspended, dispersants to keep soot and combustion byproducts from clumping, anti-wear agents like ZDDP that form a sacrificial film on metal surfaces, viscosity index improvers to keep the oil thick enough when hot and thin enough when cold, friction modifiers, anti-foam compounds, and corrosion inhibitors. And here's the part nobody tells you on the bottle. That additive package depletes. Every mile you drive, it gets used up. The cleanest way I can describe it is sunscreen at the pool. You walk out of the house with a perfect coat on your shoulders, SPF 50, the works. You jump in the water, you towel off, you jump back in. 2 hours later, the bottle's claim hasn't changed, but what's actually on your skin has. The water and the friction and the sun have been quietly stripping it the entire time. And at some point, the protection layer is just gone, even though you put it on correctly. Engine oil additives behave the same way. They're a finite coating that gets consumed by heat, by combustion, blow-by, by shear in the bearings, by the constant churn against hot metal. The base oil might still pour fine at the 5,000 mile mark. The viscosity might still measure inside spec, but the protective chemistry on top of it can be running thin in ways your dipstick has no way to tell you about. That's the heart of the issue at high mileage. A young engine with tight clearances doesn't lean on the additive package as hard. An older engine with looser tolerances, more blow-by pushing combustion gases past the rings, more thermal cycling on already stressed parts, leans on it constantly. So when an additive package is underbuilt for the application, the difference doesn't show up in the first 10,000 miles of an engine's life. It shows up in the second 100,000, and it shows up as metal in the oil. Now to the bench. 9 brands tested, same protocol, same engines, same lab. I'll give you the headline trends rather than reading you a spreadsheet. Mobil 1. Extended performance came back with iron levels in the low single digits parts per million across the test window. Copper essentially flat, oxidation well controlled at drain. Castrol Edge with the titanium additive showed a very similar wear metal profile, slightly higher oxidation at drain, but nothing concerning. Pennzoil Platinum, which uses a gas to liquid base oil, posted some of the lowest oxidation numbers in the entire test, with wear metals trending right alongside Mobil 1. Valvoline Extended Protection ran cleanly in the non-turbo engines, iron and copper both in normal range, total base number holding strong all the way to drain. Amsoil's Signature Series, which is marketed as an extended drain product, showed the highest residual TBN at 5,000 miles of any oil tested, suggesting plenty of additive reserve left in the bottle. 6 brands, 6 clean reports. That's the part that supports the common forum wisdom. Most modern API-SP oils, in most modern engines, are doing their job. Then we get to the 3 samples that told a different story. The first was a generic store brand full synthetic, the kind you find under a chain retailer's house label at a noticeably lower price. In our sample size, this oil came back with iron readings consistently elevated above the rest of the field. Not catastrophic, not the kind of number that means the engine is failing, but a clear and repeatable trend across multiple drains and multiple engines. Iron in used oil generally points to wear on cylinder walls, camshaft lobes, or timing chain components. The test results indicate that this particular formulation, while technically meeting the API-SP donut, may not be carrying the same anti-wear robustness as the name brand synthetics at extended high mileage use. That doesn't mean every batch is the same, and it doesn't mean the brand is dangerous. It means our data showed a pattern, and patterns at this mileage matter. The second flag came from a heavily marketed high mileage formula, one of those bottles with the older car silhouette on the front, and a promise to revive worn engines with seal conditioners and extra additives. In our testing, this product showed elevated copper. Copper in used oil typically traces back to bearing material, oil cooler internals, or certain bushings. What we believe was happening here, based on the additive readout, is that the formula was tuned for older naturally aspirated engines with looser tolerances and was carrying additive chemistry that, while helpful for stopping leaks on a 20-year-old V6, was underbuilt for the modern gasoline direct injection engines we included in the test mix. Direct injection puts more fuel-related stress on the oil, more soot, more dilution, more demand on the dispersant load. A formula designed for the engines of 2 decades ago can struggle in a modern GDI environment, even if the bottle says high mileage on the front. The third flag was the one that surprised me the most. A well-known name brand premium synthetic, the kind of product with aggressive marketing. Claims about wear reduction percentages came back from the turbocharged subfleet with significant fuel dilution. Fuel dilution happens when unburned gasoline slips past the rings during cold starts and short trips and ends up in the oil pan, thinning the oil and dragging viscosity down. In the turbo engines, this particular brand showed viscosity at 100 degrees Celsius, dropping below the lower edge of grade well before the 5,000 mile drain interval. The wear numbers followed, with elevated readings that matched the thinning trend. The marketing on this bottle promised the world. The lab said something quieter and more honest. I want to be careful here, because this is the part where YMYL discipline really matters. I'm not telling you those 3 products will damage your specific engine. Lab results vary from batch to batch, vehicles vary in how they're driven, and a single test program, even one as carefully run as this one, can't speak for every condition every owner will encounter. What I can say is that in our sample size on these engines under this protocol, 3 out of 9 oils showed wear metal or dilution trends that the other 6 did not. Treat that as one data point in your own decision, not as a verdict. That brings us to the gap between what's on the label and what's in the lab. Marketing language on the front of an oil bottle is doing 2 jobs at once. It's trying to communicate something real about the product, and it's trying to win shelf space in a category where most consumers genuinely cannot tell 2 bottles apart. Words like advanced, premium, pure, ultimate, fortified, and extended don't have legal definitions in motor oil the way the API donut and the SAE viscosity grade do. A wear reduction claim of a certain percentage compared to industry standard is meaningful only if you know which industry standard the brand chose to compare against, which test sequence they ran, and whether that test sequence reflects how you actually use your vehicle. The bottles that came out cleanest in our test were not always the bottles with the loudest claims, and the bottles with the loudest claims were not always the ones the lab smiled on. So how do you use any of this? Here's the practical framework I've landed on after looking at these numbers for months. If you drive a naturally aspirated engine that's still inside its factory warranty, any oil that carries the correct API SP donut and the correct viscosity grade for your manual will almost certainly do the job. Don't overthink it. Pick a reputable brand, change it on the schedule the manufacturer specifies, and move on with your life. If you drive a turbocharged engine or your odometer has crossed 100,000 miles, the calculation tightens. Then I would narrow my selection to a true full synthetic with a strong Group 4 polyalpha olefin content in the base oil from a brand with a long-standing reputation for sheer stability and oxidation resistance. The few extra dollars per jug, spread over 5,000 miles, is one of the cheapest pieces of insurance you can buy on a modern engine. And if your vehicle sees track days, towing duty, sustained mountain driving, or long highway runs in extreme heat, then, in my assessment, you stay at the top of the shelf. You buy the oils that have published their virgin oil analysis, that show robust additive packages on the datasheet, and that have a track record in fleet and motorsport applications. This is not the place to save $12. I'm planning a second round of testing focused entirely on direct injection turbo engines past 150,000 miles, because that's where I think the next interesting data lives. Before I lock the brand list, I want to hear from you. Drop your oil brand, your engine, and your current mileage in the comments below. Tell me what you've been running, what your last lab report said if you've ever pulled one, and which brands you want included in the next bench. I read every comment that comes through on these testing videos, and the next round of bottles is going to be picked partly based on what you all want to see opened up. Stay curious, stay skeptical of the front of the bottle, and I'll see you on the next one.